All right, so we're back for another deep dive, and this time it's Deepak Nitrite's Q2 FY25 results.
It's earnings season, right?
Exactly. So much to unpack. Everyone's watching to see how companies are navigating this market,
Right.
and Deepak Nitrite, they're definitely doing some interesting things.
Yeah, for sure.
To get into it, we've got a few things here. We've got some analyst questions that were prepared beforehand. The official press release just came out. And we also have their presentation deck that they probably use for an investor call.
Awesome.
A lot of good stuff to go through.
Lots to dig into, yeah.
So, Deepak Nitrite, they may not be a household name for everyone.
Yeah.
But they are really kind of a silent force behind a lot of the products that we interact with every day. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. They're a leading chemical intermediates company based in India. And they provide, these essential building blocks for all sorts of products, dyes, pigments, agrochemicals, pharmaceuticals, plastics, you name it. Even things like home and personal care products have some Deepak Nitrite chemistry going on in there.
So they really are kind of behind the scenes in so many things.
Yeah, exactly.
That's incredible.
And it's, they're not just a small operation. They've got a pretty extensive reach.
Right.
Over 32 products, over 1,000 customers.
Wow.
And they export to over 45 countries. So this is a global player in the chemical industry.
That's amazing. Now, I know that they have a few subsidiaries too, right? Deepak Phenolics, Deepak Chemtech.
Yeah, they do. Deepak Nitrite Corporation as well in the U.S.
How do those fit into the bigger picture?
Each of them, plays a role in the overall strategy, but let's put a pin in that for a second, because what we really need to talk about first is their Q2 performance. That's really what has analysts buzzing, and for good reason.
All right, so let's dive right in. What are some of the highlights here?
So revenues from operations reached 2,053 crore, which is up 14% year over year, which is pretty impressive. And EBITDA came in at a stable 319 crore. So, those are some healthy numbers.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider, kind of what's going on globally.
Right. So what's so interesting about these figures then?
Well, I think what's interesting is that, we're in this environment of geopolitical uncertainty. There's kind of this softened demand.
Yeah.
And all these factors are kind of impacting businesses globally, right? But Deepak Nitrite seems to be, kind of bucking that trend.
Yeah.
Especially with that revenue growth, 14% year over year. That's pretty impressive.
Definitely.
Makes you wonder what they're doing, right?
Well, I will say, in the presentation, they're really highlighting their phenolic segment. It seems to be a star performer for them. 29% year-over-year revenue growth.
Wow.
27% EBITDA increase. What do you think is driving those results?
Well, healthy domestic demand is definitely a factor. But they've also been doing, some interesting things like, expanding their production through what they call debottlenecking initiatives.
Debottlenecking?
Yeah, debottleneck. Have you heard of that?
I can't say that I have.
Essentially what it is it's optimizing their existing plants to get more output. So it's not always about adding new equipment. It's about finding ways to make the process more efficient. So maybe, streamlining workflows, tweaking temperatures, even experimenting with different catalysts to kind of get the most out of what they already have. Pretty smart way to, boost capacity without having to spend a ton of money on a whole new plant.
So it's like working smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
Now, the advanced intermediate segment, though, seems to be a different story. They're showing a 10% year-over-year revenue decline.
Yeah.
What's going on with that part of their business?
It seems like they're facing some headwinds there.
Okay.
Primarily pricing pressure from, those Chinese competitors. It's a familiar story, really, but it's definitely having a noticeable impact on the bottom line.
So how are they tackling this? Are they just kind of accepting it, or are they doing something to fight back, so to speak?
Well, it looks like they're taking a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
They're focusing on operational efficiencies to reduce costs.
Okay.
Actively searching for new customers so they can diversify their revenue streams a bit.
Okay.
And they're also working on, strengthening relationships with those existing clients.
Right.
Just to, kind of maintain that market share so they're not just reacting, they're actively shaping their future.
Well, speaking of shaping the future, they talk a lot about their Make in India, Make for the World strategy.
Right.
What's the big idea there?
So that strategy is all about reducing their reliance on imports, establishing themselves as a leader in chemical manufacturing globally, and They're trying to accomplish this through backward and forward integration.
Okay, what does that actually mean, though?
Yeah, it's a lot of jargon, right?
Yeah.
So backward integration is basically, in their case, it means like producing more of the raw materials that they need in-house
Okay.
instead of relying on other suppliers. So that gives them more control over their supply chain, their costs. It's kind of like if you decided to bake a cake from scratch
Okay.
instead of using a box mix. You got more control over the ingredients and the process.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, it makes it more clear.
So what about forward integration?
Forward integration is about moving, kind of further down that value chain. So instead of just selling the intermediate chemicals, they want to make more of the finished product.
Okay.
So a perfect example of that is their investment in that polycarbonate resin plant.
That big 5,000 core project, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the story there?
Well, it's definitely a major investment, and it signals their ambition to really be a major player in this world of advanced materials. But maybe we'll get into that a little later.
Yeah. Right. Right. Before we get too far down that road, I did notice in the presentation they mentioned a lot of sustainability initiatives.
Right.
Things like multi-fuel boilers and recycling. Is this just greenwashing, or are they really committed to this?
I think it's more than just greenwashing. They do seem to be genuinely committed to, reducing that environmental impact.
Okay.
So they're exploring different fuels. They're, into energy efficient waste treatment, even things like byproduct valorization.
Byproduct valorization.
Yeah. It's a fancy way of saying that they're finding ways to create value from their waste products.
So like turning trash into treasure.
Exactly. It's part of this, broader trend in the chemical industry towards what they call green chemistry.
Okay.
And it's great to see a company of their scale really taking that seriously.
Yeah, for sure. Now, speaking of, leaders in the industry, they mentioned that their chairman, Deepak Nitrite, actually received a Lifetime Achievement Award.
That's right.
For his contributions to the Indian chemical sector.
Yeah. And he also chaired the India Chem 2024 conference, which, really speaks volumes about where the company stands in the industry.
So we've covered, kind of their core business, the Q2 performance, overall strategy, but we haven't even scratched the surface on that polycarbonate venture.
Right.
That seems like it's worth a deeper look.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where things get really interesting, I think.
All right, well, let's dive into that next then.
I'll do it.
I'm ready to hear all about this potential game changer.
Okay. So this polycarbonate venture, the plant that they're building in Dahej, Gujarat,
Yeah.
this is a big deal,
Okay.
not just for Deepak Nitrite, but potentially for, India as a whole, for their manufacturing landscape.
Why is that?
Well, because this is going to be the first polycarbonate plant in India.
Really?
Yeah. So right now they're completely reliant on imports.
Wow. So they're going from zero to having their own plant? That's huge. What are the implications of that?
What ties in, directly with India's push for self-reliance,
Sure.
especially in these key sectors, semiconductors, defense, even electric vehicles, all these areas where, polycarbonate is really important.
So I'm getting a sense of the scale here, but just to back up, what exactly is polycarbonate? I feel like I've heard it, but I don't really know.
Yeah, so think of it as a type of high-performance plastic, like really versatile and durable, used in a ton of different things.
Okay.
Everything from eyeglasses and electronics to car parts, even bulletproof glass.
So it's really everywhere.
Pretty much.
And they're bringing this to India for the first time. What does that mean for them strategically?
Well, we were talking about forward integration earlier.
Right.
This is a perfect example of that. So Deepak Nitrite, they're already, a big phenol producer.
Okay.
Which is a key ingredient in polycarbonate.
Okay.
So they're taking, that expertise that they already have and moving downstream to create, more of a finished product.
It's like they found this perfect synergy, right? Building on their strengths and tapping into this, high demand market.
Exactly. And it's not just about meeting that domestic demand either.
Okay.
They've already got this export network to over 45 countries. So, clearly they've got some global ambitions here.
So they could become a major supplier on the world stage.
It's definitely a possibility.
Wow.
It's a bold move for sure.
Yeah.
And, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
Now, I know in addition to the plant itself, they're also investing in a world-class R&D center.
That's right, yeah. In Savli, Vadodara.
Right. So that's got to be another sign of, their long-term vision.
Absolutely. They're not just focused on what the market wants today, but they're thinking about, what's next and investing in, new technologies.
So thinking big and thinking ahead.
Seems to be working for them.
Yeah, definitely.
Despite all those challenges we talked about earlier, they're delivering strong results. They're expanding into these new areas,
Right.
really positioning themselves for, future growth.
So we've talked about the what of these investments, but what about the why? What does this mean for them, for India, even for the global chemical industry?
Yeah, I mean, those are the big questions, right?
Right.
On the surface, it's about growth, diversification,
Yeah.
not having to rely on imports so much.
Right.
But I think if you zoom out a little bit, look at the bigger picture.
What do you see?
Well, we could be looking at a shift in the way global manufacturing works.
Okay.
You mentioned that, China plus one strategy before
Right.
companies are looking for alternatives to China,
Yeah,
right?
right.
For sourcing and production. And India with, all their policies, their workforce, that huge domestic market,
Yeah.
they're becoming, more and more attractive.
So Deepak Nitrite is riding that wave, basically.
Yeah, capitalizing on those conditions to,
Yeah.
really become a global player.
So they're not just expanding, they're positioning themselves to be a leader in this.
Precisely. Yeah, they're at the forefront of this, potential shift in this polycarbonate plant. It's a symbol of that. It's like they're saying, we're not just trying to catch up. We want to be the ones leading the way.
Yeah.
And they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Uh,
They're making these investments
right.
both in, production and R&D.
This has been full of surprises. Deepak Nitrite, they're on the move. They're not afraid to make these big moves.
Yeah, they're definitely a company to watch. And there's one more aspect of their strategy that I think is crucial.
Okay.
And that's their focus on sustainability.
Right. We talked about some of the initiatives, but it seems like this is more than just a side project for them.
Yeah, sustainability is not just a nice to have anymore. It's becoming like a requirement for success.
So what are they doing that's different, or what are they doing that's making them stand out?
Well, they're going beyond, just the typical recycling and emissions reduction and, embracing what green chemistry,
Okay.
which is like a more, I guess, holistic approach to the whole process.
Can you give some examples of that? How are they actually doing that?
Sure. So they're looking at, alternative raw materials that are, less harmful to the environment. They're designing their processes in a way that, reduces waste and energy use.
Okay.
And, even, remember we talked about repurposing those byproducts.
Right.
That's part of it too.
So they're really trying to integrate this into everything they do, not just like an afterthought.
Yeah, it's not just a PR stunt. It's part of how they do business.
And I'm sure that makes good business sense too, right?
Absolutely. Consumers are, looking for these sustainable products. Investors are, want to see that commitment, so they're reducing their environmental impact. But they're also, it's good for their brand. It's good for attracting new customers, new investors.
To win-win.
Exactly. Doing good for the planet and for business. It's a great example for others in the industry, for sure.
So we've seen how Deepak Nitrite is not just adapting to the current, market situation, but they're setting themselves up for long-term growth and leadership.
And what's really impressive is, they're doing both, right? They're addressing these immediate issues.
Yeah.
But they're also making these moves that, might not pay off for years.
Right. It's like they're playing 4D chess or something.
Exactly. They're thinking ahead. They're anticipating.
Right.
And those investments that we talked about, the plant, the R&D center, those are prime examples of that.
Yeah.
And the sustainability commitment, that just adds another layer of sophistication to their approach.
They're not just following trends, they're setting them,
Exactly.
which makes their story even more interesting.
Now, for those of you who are, really intrigued by Deepak Nitrite and this journey that they're on, I'll leave you with this thought. So think about their Make in India strategy, but like on a global scale.
Okay.
We've talked about, reducing those imports and making India this manufacturing powerhouse.
Yeah.
But what if we go a step further?
What do you mean?
Imagine India becoming a real competitor to China.
Okay.
In the chemical market, companies start sourcing from India instead.
Okay.
Supply chains shift and suddenly, things start to look different.
That's a pretty big vision. Is that really possible?
I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, right?
Yeah.
But The pieces are there. India's got the resources, the workforce, the government's on board.
Yeah.
Deepak Nitrite is, putting themselves in a position to really be a part of that.
So this polycarbonate venture, it's more than just business.
Yeah, it's a statement.
It's a statement.
About India's ambition. They want to be a leader, and Deepak Nitrite is, they're not afraid to take those risks, make those big moves.
This has been quite a deep dive.
Yeah.
We started with, financial statements, and now we're talking about global supply chains.
It's all connected.
And it all started with a company that, most people probably haven't even heard of.
Sometimes the most interesting stories are the ones that, you don't expect.
Exactly. So for our listeners, now that we've come to the end of this, what would you say is the key takeaway?
Keep an eye on this polycarbonate thing.
Okay.
If it works, it could change things,
Yeah.
for the whole industry.
Wow.
Could shift that balance of power, between China and India. It's a story that's just starting.
Yeah.
But it could be huge.
Deepak Nitrite, a company to watch, a story to follow. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely.
We'll be back with more insights and analysis, more of those aha moments that make exploring the business world so fun.
Looking forward to it.